and welcome to yet another episode of Abbott and Costello Meet the podcast, Pardon My Sarong. I'm Jerry Shario, your producer and editor, and the guy who attempts to keep the other guy on track. And speaking of the other guy, here he is, actor, playwright, director, musician, author, a man who made Fortune 500's list of the top 10 people they've never heard of before, Nick Santamaria.
Those bastards. Hey, thank you. Thank you very much, Jerry, for that lovely and lovely introduction. It's so lovely, it took two lovelies to say it. And lovely you are, Jerry. Very good to see you. Welcome.
And you too.
Thank you very much. And we are discussing a movie that we both have a special fondness for.
Yes.
I think we both believe that it's in their top five funniest films, no doubt. And it is just jam-packed with good, nutritious goodness that will leave you laughing, I promise you. But in the meantime, let's discuss something that Jerry discovered recently that I had on my computer just for a very brief time before they took it away. And I only saw it once. So Jerry found out where to see it more than once. So, Jerry, why don't you take it from here?
Okay, so I had heard from Nick about this appearance of Abbott and Costello in the Ed Sullivan Show in what I believe is their final TV appearance.
It very well might be. It very well might be. Bud doesn't have his mustache, which means Dance With Me, Henry.
And I actually found it on Pluto TV. It's a free app, Pluto TV, and you can search Comedy Legends from the Ed Sullivan Show. And if you go to season 1, episode 11, there's a whole bunch of comedians featured on it, including Bud and Lou, where they do their dollar-a-day routine, a version of it that I had never seen before.
I'm sorry, I want to just get this out, which they only did once in One Night in the Tropics. And we discussed that the fact that we love this routine, why did they only do it once? But apparently they did it twice. I'm sorry.
Yes.
No, go ahead.
No, that's quite all right. Yeah, it's set in an IRS office. Bud is the IRS agent, and Lou has come in to get his, quote, refund of $365, $1 a day. And they just go to town. And what I love about it, the routine is great. The routine is always great. I love watching it in One Night in the Tropics, and it's just a good, solid routine. Having them do it in front of a live audience, they go to town.
Lou is especially playful.
Yes, you can't hold Lou back when there's a live audience in front of him. But yes.
His entrance into the IRS office is worth the price of admission. He does not stop. He just keeps one physical bit after another. The other thing I noticed about it, and this is, well, two things. One was there is a actual scene 1 to this. Lou's wife is yelling at him about getting his refund, and she sends him to go to Bud and do this routine. It's a little, it's not really necessary, but it's interesting to watch him play with somebody else.
And honestly, it makes me wonder if she was, somebody's niece. Or
no, she was an actress. She was an actress, no doubt. No doubt she was an actress. She was hired for the job.
The fact that they do this, the unnecessary intro, really.
Exactly. I get you. It was a New York show, and I'm sure she was a New York actress.
Oh, yeah.
But regardless of that, Bud screws up the routine at one point. Bud misremembers and bobbles it, but he goes right back and fixes it, which I love.
Yep.
So you have to be on the ball to fix what you screwed up. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So anyway, it is probably their last performance on television together. So yeah, it would be worth your while to look it up. It's pretty interesting. And like I say, Lou is really on his game. He's someone just raring to go, But that's where the 9-year age difference comes in. People forget that. Bud was 9 years older. He was almost a decade older than Lou, and that's a difference. There's a major difference. But anyway, bless them both. They were both terrific. So let's start with Pardon My Sarong. First of all, for the uninitiated, what is a sarong? Okay, a sarong is a piece of flowered cloth, usually, or elegantly designed cloth that wraps around you rather than you stepping into it or putting it around your shoulders. You lift your arms and wrap it around your torso, and that is your sarong. And Dorothy Lamour made it an industry, the sarong. And she started a trend in filmmaking. And I'm not going to say she started it, but she was the star of the film that began this trend. It was called
Yeah.
Jungle Princess, and she was the lead, and she looked great. She looked very exotic for this young singer from New Orleans, and she became the island princess of Paramount Studios for years, and also with Bob Hope and Bing Crosby. So she was part of that group as well. There's a wonderful shot in Road to Utopia, which takes place in the Klondike. So it's freezing cold and there's snow. And Dorothy Lamour is walking towards Bob and Bing, and she's far enough away that she doesn't hear what they're saying. And Bing Crosby goes, "Look at her. She's so beautiful. You can't picture her being anywhere else." And Bob looks, and you see her. It dissolves into her into a sarong. And that was the big joke, that was her thing. So what were they spoofing here? They were spoofing Paramount's jungle movies, island movies. And, you had people like Ray Milland in those movies at Paramount. So anyway, this came not initially from Universal. It came from another company. This was an independent production. People
Yes.
forget that.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised to see that as the film opened. I had never noticed that before until this viewing.
I really did. And it always kind of fascinated me. But when you're young and you're watching this movie, and this is one I looked forward to whenever it was on, two things. Even as a little kid, the opening song to this, under the titles, ya da 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 da, ya da da da. I think it's one of the dreamier songs written.
Yeah.
And it stays with me forever, and it means island paradise to me. So Mayfair Productions was an independent company run by a fellow by the name of Jules Levy, a dyed-in-the-wool New Yorker who did all his business out of New York. And he produced Hell's a Poppin', the movie, with Olsen and Johnson. He produced Boys from Syracuse, which he wanted Abbott and Costello to star in. But unfortunately, they were still under contract to Kate Smith and had to finish up with that. So they couldn't do it. They got Joe Penner instead. He did a movie called New Orleans, which was a tribute to jazz, starring Louis Armstrong, amongst many others, including Jack Teagarden, and a movie called The Hairy Ape, which was the story of Donald Trump, oh, sorry. I didn't mean to. Sorry. That was a William Bendix movie based on a famous play. I believe it was an O'Neill story. Anyway, if he only did Hell's a Poppin', I would love Jules Levy forever, because I think it's one of the funniest movies ever made. Oh, and we're going to have Matthew Coney on soon, my co-author for the annotated Abbott and Costello. And he's made it very clear to me that he hates Hell's a Poppin'. So maybe we can bring that up while he's here. But he also dislikes Abbott and Costello and Frankenstein's.
Let me make a note of that right now. Bud
Go ahead.
Matthew about Hell's a Poppin'. Okay, got it.
So he's not quite right in the head. But anyway, no, we love him. So yeah, Jules Levy was also a favorite of Abbott and Costello's. He was a very honorable man. He was a fine producer. And he loved the boys. He wanted to work with the boys. And they made sure they did at this point. So they made this film for Mayfair Productions. They used all of Universal's resources, all the set decorators, lighting people, and the writers especially. Actually, most importantly to me is the script. And then we'll get into the director. But the script was written initially by our Marx Brother friend, Nat Perrin. He was under contract to Universal at the time. And he had worked with them before, but now he was putting together this story with the producer, Alex Gottlieb. And then they brought in True Boardman. He's a perennial. He worked on Ride 'em Cowboy and Keep 'em Flying. Anyway, and True Boardman comes along, and he just kind of, ties it together, what Perrin and Gottlieb had done. And he makes a finished script out of it and hands it to John Grant. And just like the other scripts, John Grant works his magic.
Yep.
Usually to the consternation of the actual writers, because he changes things.
One thing that I noticed about the opening credits on this film, usually it's something to the effect of special material by John Grant, or,
Hmm.
additional material by. This one, he's listed screenplay by.
And will be
Uh,
from here
yeah,
on. He worked his way up to that, and deservedly so. I mean, let's face
yeah,
it. He's the one who brought what initially brought the attention to Abbott and Costello, and that was the burlesque routines. And they were always, just like the Fred Astaire dance numbers in a Fred Astaire movie. They were the specialties. They were the
yeah.
things people came to see. So we have Jules Levy at Mayfair. We have the writers, and now we have the director, and it's a new director for the boys. Arthur Lubin got a little sick of working with the boys. I want to be honest. They were at the point now where they knew how valuable they were, and they weren't taking any crap. Not anymore. It was those days were over. They now had a huge motorhome to live in between scenes, and living to them meant cards. They played cards. They played, I don't know if it was poker or gin or whatever it was. They became famous for their card games. Assistant director Howard Christie said that it never interfered with the shooting, but you knew where to find them in between takes. So, yeah, they were getting a little bit, not I want to say full of themselves, but, it must be hard not to at this point.
Yeah.
This movie alone was the second highest grossing film of the year, right behind, again, Mrs. Miniver, the MGM blockbuster. But Abbott and Costello are right behind, right just a hair behind. It's amazing. So who do they go to? They go to Universal director Earl C. Kenton. Now, who is he? He is a guy who started with Mack Sennett. He is said to be one of the first Keystone Cops. He learned his trade there, comedy, gags, the whole bit, and went on to direct. He just became a fine director. Worked at Paramount for a while in the early 30s, made a couple of films that I really like. One is called Guilty as Hell, and that's with Victor McLaglen and Edmund Lowe, and it is as pre-code as you can get. Another one is W.C. Fields and You're Telling Me, which also included his dad, Pop Kenton, who is a familiar face at Paramount. He showed up in a lot of movies. Eventually at Universal, he made some of my favorites. North to the Klondike with Broderick Crawford and Lon Chaney Jr. having the fight of the century at the end, and they did their own stunts. And they were probably both drunk off their butts. But it's a great Donnybrook. I got to tell you, it's amazing. They showed it at Cinecon one year, and it was just a big hit. He did Ghost of Frankenstein, also with Lon Chaney Jr. as the monster, and both House movies, House of Frankenstein and House of Dracula, the two that finished off the Universal horror movie monsters until our other two monsters brought them back in Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. And interestingly, Earl Kenton also directed Olsen and Johnson in, I consider to be their second best Universal film, Crazy House. That's the one with that great first 10 minutes. Olsen and Johnson are coming, and they're closing the gates, and they've got weaponry out and everything. So you've got a new director, and he's excited. He's raring to go. And the movie is a bit more lavish than the boys were used to at Universal, right? What's his name? Levy spent more money on this film, is close to $500,000 on this one. And I have to say that one of the things I love about this movie is that Lou is very, very playful. And there was a great interview being done on the set during the luau scene. There's a big feast scene, and Lou's just going crazy. He's looking at the costume of the guy next to him, has like these round balls for a hat. And Lou turns to him and says, "It's quite a collection of ping pong balls you've got there." At one point, he takes a piece of meat and he sticks it on another person's hat because there's a point there. It's just that kind of thing that he was best at. And he's out of control in this movie. And that's the way I like Lou, out of control. And until Bud pulls him back, of course. So we're looking at Pardon My Sarong. And we're looking at the first chapter, the chapter I wrote about it in my book, our book, The Annotated Abbott and Costello. We started with quotes at the beginning of every chapter. And my quote is from producer, director, writer Michael Schlesinger, who did our Biffle and Schuster movies. And he says, the film is very funny, but there's way too many songs. That's what I opened with. But I have to say, and I was telling Jerry this earlier on today, I was saying that the comedy is so jam-packed with stuff. There are scenes that go on and you're still laughing by the end of the scene. It just, there's a real preponderance of comedy in this one. It's almost as if they looked at the other films and thought, there's still a little too comedy relief here. Let's make them the stars. And a lot of people thought Who Done It, the next film, was the thing that did that for them. I think it was this film. I disagree. I think that they were given a great showcase here and some of their best material. And they were the stars. They were clearly the stars, despite another plot, despite really good actors. It was Abbott and Costello. This is their movie, hands down, right?
Yep.
The boys are bus drivers. We open on our favorite curmudgeon, Charles Lane, who was also very grouchy and right-em cowboy.
Yes.
And he is looking into the disappearance of a Chicago crosstown bus. It seems that Tommy Layton, a millionaire yachtsman, played by Robert Page, who is a much better actor than most people think. And I'm going to tell people to watch him in a movie called Son of Dracula with Lon Chaney Jr. Again, with Lon Chaney Jr. He gives a performance that belongs to an A picture, and he's terrific. He's just terrific. Anyway, it's interesting about him, though, because he started out as a newsreader on the radio, and he ended up that way. He ended up as a newsreader on radio and television. So anyway, Robert Page plays Tommy Layton. He's got a bus full of chorus girls, I imagine, and Bud and Lou are the hapless bus drivers who he's chartered to take him to. I'm assuming it's San Pedro in California, because it looks like San Pedro.
I agree.
But anyway, it's off to a port where they are going to pick up on the yacht race, the big yacht race that he's signed up for. So Bud and Lou are the bus drivers, Algernon Shaw and Wellington Flugg. Okay. I always thought of the actress Joanne Flug whenever I heard Wellington Flugg.
Yes.
Who I had a terrible crush on. And eventually we had the same agent in Miami. And I would run into her in the office and I would just go, ha, 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 ha. And that was on my more articulate days. She was, what a gorgeous woman. Anyway, so Lou is very nervous because they took the bus and Bud is like, are you kidding? This is fabulous. And they end up driving to the yacht club where everything takes place. And I don't know about you, but I love this sequence, the yacht club. This is where, even as a kid, I was transfixed by this, and for a few reasons. Number one, the set is absolutely stunning. With the mirrored ceiling, it's a nightclub. And there's a scene where when we come up, Bud and Lou are sitting there with two empty champagne glasses or cocktail glasses. And Lou's saying, I got to have another one. And Bud's like, no, one's enough for me. I can't. Ooh. And Lou's like, you can't take it, huh? And he goes up to the bar and he asks for another one. And of course, it's an ice cream sundae. And that's what he's been eating. but when you see the long shot, the establishing shot of this place, you see where the bar was and where Bud and Lou are sitting, and it's different. It's very different. The bar surrounds the stage where the the 4 ink spots are playing, and it's beautiful. And there's a dance floor, and of course the tables around, but it's a really interesting nightclub set. I really, really like it. So we got the fabulous ink spots. Now, did we skip the gas station scene? I think we did. Yeah, I'm sorry about that because that's one of my favorites. In our book, I like to label my little chapters with a pun. And in this scene, Bud and Lou need gas for the bus. So they pull into a gas station. But before they get there are 2 con men filling up their own tank, and they don't have any money. And this is Herb Vigran and Eddie Acuff, 2 great character actors from those days. And Herb Vigran actually saw my nightclub act, my comedy act in Los Angeles years later. And we had a nice talk in the parking lot. And he couldn't get over how thrilled I was. I mean, this guy was on Superman, for crying out loud. So these guys decide to pull the baseball story. And what's the baseball story? Well, baseball was hotter than it had ever been in 1941/42 due to Joe DiMaggio's string of hits, uninterrupted string of hits. It was amazing. It was an amazing time. And so they used this to tell the story to the gas station owner. The gas station owner gets all wrapped up in it and forgets that they owe him $20, and they drive off. All right, take care. And then he realizes, oh my gosh, I forgot to take the money. So he takes a baseball bat and he says, the next guy that tries to do this, he's going to get beaten with this baseball bat. Anyway, what happens? Bud and Lou pull up. They get out of the bus, and Tommy Layton gives them $20. And Lou is holding the $20, and one of the women that are getting back on the bus grab it and say, thank you, and she walks away. Now, you're going to think I'm crazy, but this is one of my favorite Lou Costello lines, and it makes no sense whatsoever. Bud says, what happened? Where's the money? And he says, oh, the one with the long red stuff and the head, too. Now, if you translate that, it means the woman with the long red fox coat and the hat. That's all he had to say. But it came out. The one in the long red stuff and the head, too. Now, somehow I can't picture Nat Perrin saying, I think I'll write that. I think that's an interesting way of saying it. Yeah.
I can't even picture John Grant saying, I'll write that. You know?
I grant you that. So, so did I say I like puns?
You did, yes.
Yes, I did. And I prove it again and again. So anyway, they're at the gas station. And of course, since they don't have the money anymore, Bud suggests he tells him the baseball story. And of course, Lou tries to tell him the story, and Irving Bacon, our gas station attendant, is holding the bat threateningly and finishing Lou's sentences for him. He obviously knows the baseball story. So when Bud realizes that he knows it, Bud, in all his bravery and his daring do, he runs away and leaves Lou there. Lou thinks fast and says, what's that got to do with my change? And the guy goes, oh, I'm sorry. And he goes, yeah, I gave you a $20 bill. So the guy gets all wrapped up again. This guy needs a course in concentrating, I think. Paying attention to conversations. And so Lou convinces him to give him change of a 20, which he does. And then Lou gives him a tip, which he secretly takes away from him, and runs to the bus, which is already running. And this is my other favorite in this movie, because this is karma in action. Lou sticks his head out the door of the bus going, ha, 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 and the door closes on his neck. And and it's just the perfect way to end a really funny scene. Mm-hmm. And that takes us to the yacht club. I mean, the yacht club. There you go. Yeah. Okay. So you want to talk what's going on there? Who's playing there? It's the 4 ink spots.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, they are so incredible.
Incredible. And how about Bill Kenny, that tenor? He's just, I can't reach those notes with a ladder. He is just amazing. They actually cut one of their songs. They do a song called Do I Worry? Do I worry? Yeah.
Do I worry? 'Cause you're stepping out. Do I worry? 'Cause you've got me in doubt. Though your kisses aren't right, do I give a bag of beans? Do I stay home every night and read my magazines? Am I friend?
And then they do a song with Tip Tap and Toe, the famous tap dancing trio. And that's a song called Shout, Brother, Shout, Shout, Brother, Shout, when that rhythm hits you, shout, brother, shout. Anyway, it's a great number. And I want to tell you a little bit about the ink spots while we're here. They were made up of Raymond Winfield, Sammy Green. Oh, no, that's Tip Tap and Toe. Raymond Winfield, Sammy Green, and Teddy Frazier. And they worked into the 1950s, appearing on Ed Sullivan, in fact, quite often. And the ink spots, well, of course, there was Bill Kenny. And Bill Kenny was voted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as the godfather of rhythm and blues tenors. Think about it. Think about the
Wow.
Platters. Who were they doing? They were doing
Yep,
Bill Kenny.
yep.
He was amazing. And they were made up of Charlie Fuqua, Jerry Daniels, and my favorite, Orville Hoppy Jones. And he's the one that goes like this.
Do I worry when nice men go? Do I worry if Niagara falls? Though you treat me just like dirt, think I'd give a snap? Are my feelings really hurt when you're sitting in somebody else's lap?
So yeah, Hoppy Jones. And unfortunately, 2 years after this movie was made, he collapsed on stage of a cerebral hemorrhage. And he had been having them up to this point, and he just kept working. So that poor fellow with that great deep voice passed away a few years later. So anyway, I want to talk about Tip, Tap, and Toe a little bit. They are incredible.
Yes.
Even as kids, when we talk about, Jerry, when we try to get like family or friends to watch old movies with us and they get bored during songs, right? Never during this number. This number is as compelling as anything Abbott and Costello are doing. It was Raymond Winfield is the one who does the sliding. He gets on top of that table and he slides. It's like they buttered his shoes, you know? It's incredible. That's why he would always perform in the Olio. Only if it was a nice spread. But anyway, I think I lost him. This time. Wake up.
Okay, I'm back.
Okay, good. So Bill Kenny formed the group. They worked from 1934 to 1954 with different members, but Bill Kenny was always the guy. And he retired the group in 1954 and eventually moved to Vancouver, to Canada, where he got his own television show. He was one of the first African Americans in Canada to have his own television show. And he passed away in Canada in 1978 at the young age of 64. Wow. He was younger than I am. Weird. So that's it. That's more information than you'll ever know or want to know about the Ink Spots and Tip, Tap, and Toe. So something important happens here. Let's get to the plot. Tommy Layton is there at the yacht club. He's there with his bevy, his harem of beauties. And at one point he gets up, and I always liked this when I was a kid, when he'd kiss everyone, he went around the table kissing each woman. And then he gets to our leading lady who doesn't know him from Adam. And this is Virginia Bruce. And he kisses her, thinking she's just one of the harem. And she slaps his face. And he says something that is so arrogant. Is that as hard as you can slap? And he kisses her again. She should have kneed him in a place, maybe is slightly more sensitive than his cheek. But anyway, they meet this way. And then we meet her brother, who is also in the yacht race. And word is out that Tommy Layton stole her brother's crew. It turns out not to be true, but still, there's tension between him and the brother, and of course Virginia Bruce. And this all gets. We'll look into this a little bit later, because right now Bud and Lou are in trouble with the law. They stole a bus, right? A whole bus they stole without a transfer, and I don't know how they're going to get back. So who do they send? They send Uncle Charlie. I mean. You know who I'm talking about, William Demarest, now under contract to Universal, working with the Ritz Brothers and now Abbott and Costello. And he comes by, old Uncle Charlie. And you realize that in One Night in the Tropics, they worked with Bub, William Frawley from My Three Sons, and then with William Demarest, Uncle Charlie from My Three Sons.
Steve, if Ernie tells you I punched him in a bad place, don't believe him.
Oh, that's all right, Charlie. What's for breakfast? There we go. That was my tribute to My Three Sons. But anyway, so they send a private detective, and he has a subpoena for them, a summons for them. And Lou does not understand, of course. He thinks he's being invited to a big hotel. When they realize what's going on, Bud and Lou run away, and William Demarest gives chase, and they end up in the backstage area of the nightclub, which actually looks more like a theater now. It actually looks like the Backstage in Who Done It, their next film, if you remember.
Yeah.
The Flying Bordellos. But they run backstage, and there's a gag Lou does, and you're an old theater guy, Jerry. Whenever I go backstage for the first time, and the stagehands are around and all this stuff, I look at the ropes and I pull one and I say, "Oh, archery," and I pull it, doing, right, which is what Lou does it, and I've been doing it for 50 years, 40 years.
Yep.
Thank you, Lou. And it's very funny. But anyway, they find out that Marco the Magician, as Lou says, Marco the Magician is appearing there. So they hide in his dressing room. But he comes out and he confronts William Demarest. And he is played by the great Sig Arno, who is a German comedian who fled Germany when the mustachioed one took hold. And he came to America and became a great character actor. And he plays Marco the Magician. And he does a trick with the summons. He folds it up and he puts it in a thing and he says some words. He lights it on fire, boom. And then he reaches behind William Demarest's ear and produces it again and walks away. So William Demarest is amazed and he's looking at it. And then Bud Abbott, in perhaps one of my top 3 favorite Bud Abbott scenes, he absolutely shines. He comes out dressed, disguised as Marco the Magician. And he's got the top hat and the mustache and the beard and a very funny French accent. And instead of saying hello, he says, "Au revoir, au revoir." William Demarest thinks it's Marco the Magician again, and he asks him to do the trick and show him how it works. And Bud, of course, doesn't know how it works, and it turns out to be a mess. And finally, William Demarest says something to him, and Bud slips and says, "I don't know, I don't speak English," and he walks away. So he gets a good punchline before Lou comes out, also dressed as Marco the Magician, only he's about 5 inches shorter and maybe 80 pounds heavier. He looks nothing like Marco the Magician. And William Demarest, of course, thinks it's Marco the Magician and asks him to do the trick. And of course, Lou takes it beyond the point of no return. He ends up putting eggs in his hat and mixing it up and turning it into an omelet. And of course, he always referred to one of those mixers as an outboard motor. Yes. It's no different here. So yeah, he kind of screws up on the joke. What I love is that the mustache and beard are attached to his cigar. And when he takes the cigar out of his mouth, he loses the mustache and beard. So they have to time that every time he takes it out. William Demarest looks away. Anyway, it's a lovely scene. And that leads to more chasing and all the backstage stuff with Marco the Magician's props. So there's a fake cage with rubber bars. There's a trunk with no back to it. A lot of these things. It reminded me, actually, all of that reminded me. I wouldn't be surprised if it were an MGM film and Buster Keaton came up with the gags. That's what this scene is kind of like, you know?
Yeah.
But anyway, it's a lot of fun, and it just kind of ends, you know? It doesn't really end properly, but it sort of fades out. So what happens? Tommy Layton, we assume, is off to his yacht. Bud and Lou are now the prisoners of William Demarest, and all 3 are in the bus heading back to Chicago. Unfortunately, they end up on a docking platform in what looks like San Pedro, and this docking platform is attached to the end of the pier, which overlooks the ocean. So the bus is there, and they do their famous routine: back up, go ahead.
What's the matter now? Get in. All right, back up. I gotta back up. Go ahead. Don't you hear me? Back up. I gotta back up. Go ahead. What's the matter with you? Back up. I'm gonna back up. Do as the man tells you. Go ahead. Will you go ahead and back up? How can you go ahead and then back up? Back up. Go ahead. Now I gotta back up, then go ahead. What kind of bus do you think this is? I'll satisfy the both of you. I'll go sideways. Back up!
And he does, and the platform has already started going out to sea. So when he backs up, the bus backs into the ocean. I'm just picturing the faces of people who have never seen this film before, and they're listening to this description. They must be, "Are you on the right planet? What the hell is this?" So there's two wonderful things that happen here. The bus, we see the miniature of the bus going off the platform, and the miniature is beautiful. You see all the homes
Oh, yes.
on shore, right, Jerry? It's
It looks
charming.
gorgeous. Yes.
I agree. And the bus comes down, and you see Chicago Municipal Bus, and it goes down, and you see William Demarest go out the front door, and as if he's on a wire, which he is, he swims out of the water. You see him come above, and that's the last we see of William Demarest. He could have been eaten by a shark for all we know. He disappears. That's it. And that's it about finding the bus, sending out people to find it, detectives, cops, it's all done. But the other thing that happens is underneath the water. Would you like to say this one, Jerry?
Nope, you go right ahead. You go right ahead.
We both love this thing.
Yes.
They are at the bottom of the ocean. Lou is in the driver's seat, and the first thing he does is turn on the windshield wiper. It's just beautiful. It's like him in Ride 'em Cowboy. They're underneath the river, and he takes a cup and he fills it with water and drinks it. But anyway, so that's a wonderful thing. But let's get back to the plot for a second. Tommy Layton shows up at his yacht where he meets Tom Fadden, who was famous for being the first person eaten by the blob in the original movie. He is one of the guys who works at the harbor, and he tells Tommy that he has no crew, that they went back to Virginia Bruce's brothers, and that was all done by Virginia Bruce, who wants to get revenge on Tommy Layton for doing that to her brother, blah, 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 blah. So Tommy Layton actually kidnaps Virginia Bruce. He performs a felony. Basically, he shoves her into the hold and locks it up and says, "You are now my crew, whether you like it or not." So this is the same guy who said, "Can you slap harder than that?" Not gaining points with the women in the audience. But anyway, she is now locked safely aboard, and Mr. Layton has to pull the anchor up, of course. So he steps on the automatic anchor puller upper. And who should we find at the end of the anchor but our two hitchhiking bus drivers, Bud and Lou, Wellington and Algie. They are actually hitchhiking underwater. Now, I'm just assuming that the writers felt that comedians of the golden age weren't like other people. They didn't need to breathe, or they could breathe underwater. So Bud and Lou, for the last maybe 10 minutes, have been underwater, hitchhiking. Now, Jerry, what would they be hitchhiking for underwater?
A lift.
There are no surgeons. There are no surgeons there underwater from Beverly Hills. They can't get on the lift. No,
they're trying to get a submarine or a streetcar or who knows?
Yeah. It's just again, it's people tuning in and saying, "What the hell kind of movie is this?" They're hitchhiking underwater. They're breathing underwater. I don't know. Anyway, it's not explained. We just assumed that the two of them are superhuman. So they are invited onto the boat, the yacht, and they invite Sharky, the pet. What's it called?
The harbor seal.
The harbor seal. Yes. And he jumps aboard. Lou doesn't know what it is. He says, "What's that?" And Bud tells him, "It's a seal. They make fur coats." "Really? How do they teach them to do such work?" And so anyway, they invite Sharky on board. Now, Lou apparently had a rather sketchy relationship with animals in general. I think the only animals you really hear him getting along with in my reading were his racehorses, which he loved. But he was not a big animal guy. And I say in the last chapter, and we'll be getting to this eventually, Jerry, for his final film, The 30-Foot Bride of Candy Rock, one of his main co-stars is his dog, Corporal, and he has really no interaction with it. He talks to it, but he doesn't touch it, he doesn't pet it, he doesn't smile at it, nothing. So anyway, I just have a feeling that if he were an animal person, that would have been different. But in this one, there's a great outtake of Sharky trying to bite him at one point. Get away from me, you lug! Get out of here! In a way, I almost wish I didn't see that because it kind of takes away. But still,
Yeah.
it's a funny clip.
Well, in spite of his attitude, and we'll get to this in just a minute or two here, because later on there's a couple of scenes where he interacts with Sharky, and you can tell it's ad lib.
Yeah.
Lou is responding to noises and things that Sharky is doing, and they don't miss a beat. It just flows smoothly. It's beautiful to watch.
They do work well together, actually. And
Yes.
you wonder, is that the editing or whatever? But there's a part we come to later where it's kind of sad. And all of a sudden you hear Sharky going, and Lou going, "Oh, no, don't worry. Don't feel bad. I'm okay." He's talking to them.
Yes.
But anyway, we'll get to that scene. That's the notorious scene in this movie.
Yes.
The one black mark. So they're on board. They are now part of Tommy Layton's crew, along with the kidnapped Virginia Bruce, who was quite lovely. And she actually was with MGM in the early 1930s. And I have to tell you, she was truly like an angelic beauty at that point. She was just gorgeous. And she made some movies, and she even the Academy Award winner for 1936, The Great Ziegfeld. She played a really bitchy character. She was good at that, actually, and she got cast as that quite a bit at MGM. But eventually she found herself at Universal doing things like The Invisible Woman, I think was also Earl C. Kenton, I believe, and Shemp Howard, and John Barrymore. Not too shabby. So by this time, she was towards the end of her career. I know she married well and she lived out a good life. But here she is at a A- studio after being groomed for stardom at MGM. And you know how that works. We already talked about Dick Powell. And Claire Dodd and all that. So, so Virginia Bruce is now working with Abbott and Costello, and they start doing ship shtick. I hope that didn't sound dirty. Ship. There you go. Try saying that with loose.
You got it. You got it.
Yeah, especially with a mouthful of crackers. That would be terrible. Anyway, so they're doing shtick, and one thing I noticed, and one thing I love watching, is they're doing the whole bit with Lou being threatened by the sharks, and he thinks they cut his leg off, and he's, "Where's my other foot? I came in here with another foot." And Virginia Bruce is the third party in this scene. The three of them are on camera the whole time, and she's having a ball. I don't care what you say. I know the face of an actor that's having a good time. And she may not be laughing, but she's having a great time. And it's almost like, look at me, I'm roughhousing with the boys. And that's a lot of fun to me. I love that. So they are on this ship and they are, going along, and there's a moonlit, beautiful scene, one that you usually find in a Hope and Crosby road picture, where Bing would probably sing the main ballad to Dorothy L'Amour. But in this scene, Bud and Lou are at the wheel, and Virginia and Robert, actually Tommy Layton and what's her character's name? I forgot. Joan
Merrill?
Joan Haven. Joan Flavin.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there you go.
All right. So her name is Joan. Let's just say her name is Joan. And they're having a little, nice little cozy scene in the moonlight. And he's trying to make good on, being such a jerk. And, she seems to be taking it well. And you cut back to Bud and Lou for one of my favorite Bud and Lou jokes. And they used it quite a few times in the past. The joke is,
"Boy, they sure hate each other."
Yeah, they hate each other well enough to get married.
Well, wouldn't you marry a pretty girl like that?
No, I marry a homely girl.
Why?
Well, if you marry a pretty girl like her, she's liable to run away.
Well, a homely girl is apt to run away too.
Yeah, but who cares?
it's really a great joke. If you could, if you don't take it too seriously, kids.
Yes.
But they softened it later. They softened it for their TV show in the 1950s. It wasn't homely anymore. It was a poor girl. So they were sensitive to it by that time. Isn't that interesting?
Okay.
Yeah. I took note of that. It was the TV show, the filmed TV show. Yeah, so they're there, and all of a sudden, there is a typhoon. Okay, we find out that she has jimmied the compass. One of my favorite lines, he says, "Ease the main, douse the jib, and break out the spinnaker." That's what Tommy Layton says. Those are his orders. And Lou starts heading towards the galley. And Bud says, "Where are you going?" And he says, "You heard him. He said peas and giblets and break out a can of spinach." So, so Bud's like, there's a typhoon. And he goes, "That can't affect me. I'm vaccinated." There is one joke after another. But we get to my favorite part during the storm. Lou is shaving with a straight edge razor. And in front of him is the little round portable mirror that he has on a shelf. And he's looking in the mirror and he's shaving. And the boat starts rocking. And the mirror slides away. It slides all the way to the end while Lou is looking down, cleaning his blade. And he looks up and he goes, "How do you like that? I cut my head off." But then there's a scene that is as good as, I mean, it's Keaton, it's Chaplin, it's great silent comedy. Him trying to shave while the mirror is going back and forth, and it's really, really sweet.
Yes.
So then they get on board to help, and this is what I call bad universal dubbing. If you're a fan of these movies, and I know you are, Jerry, you've noticed scene after scene where their lips are not moving, and you hear them speaking and yelling and whatever, and it doesn't sound like it was at the same time they were shooting.
No.
So basically, they were foleying their dialogue over footage that was too noisy in the background to hold their voices. So basically, Universal built a tank for this movie and filled it with like millions of gallons of water. And this was filmed there. And there was the lightning effects, there was the sound of the water, there was all that stuff. So basically what they did was they dubbed in the storm sounds and then they recorded over that Bud and Lou's lines. But it looks terrible. At one point he's sliding and he's doing his patented, that, and he had already stopped and was doing something else, and the soundtrack still had the sound going, as if he was still sliding. So anyway, this is just one of my pet peeves about their films. It was a little careless. And for Three Stooges fans, I want to mention one other thing before I die. I want this to go on record, that when I watch the later Three Stooges movies and they shoot like chases where they speed up the action, they speed up the soundtrack too.
Yes.
We better go to the right. Let's go to the left.
And although it sounds funny, that's not what you do. You speed up the action, not the voices. So anyway, that was another thing. I had to get it out of my comedy consciousness.
Okay.
So they're doing the storm. Storm is great, blah, blah, blah. They finally come out of the storm, and we realize that they are starving. They are down to their last few beans. Each one of them gets 2 kidney beans for lunch. Their water is gone, basically. And the sails are gone. So their motor is not where, they have no gas, and they are just waiting to perish, basically. But this is one of my favorite scenes, is eating the beans.
Well, go ahead and eat it.
This is mine?
Go ahead.
You mean you're gonna let me eat this whole half a bean?
I've always got to give you the best of it. Take it easy now and chew it up good.
Mm-hmm.
Chew it up good.
I'm gonna make it last. Don't worry. I'm gonna put it from here over to here and here to here.
Go ahead.
Then sometimes I'll put up here. It's up there now.
Where's it now?
It's gone.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites as well.
I will say, his whole thing about where he's placing the bean as he's chewing it.
Yes.
Oh, sometimes I put it over here. Sometimes I put it over here. Sometimes I put it up here. It's up there now. Where is it now? It's gone. It is just so beautiful. It's beautiful. So now we get to the part that I've been dreading. And this is the part that a lot of people will draw the line on this one. Now, it's been stated before that Bud and Lou have a burlesque team. What's the word I'm looking for? Relationship, basically. Thank you, Jerry. And Bud is opportunistic. That's his character. He's self-serving. And occasionally he goes to bat for Lou, and they show their friendship, their true friendship. But in this case, I'm going to leave it to you, because I watched it again very closely yesterday. And let's discuss it. We see that Lou is outside on the deck, while Tommy, Joan, and Bud, Algie, are down in the galley, basically. Lou is hungry. He's really hungry. He turns on the radio, and of course, there's a commercial How did they get this from? They're in the middle of the South Seas, and they're getting a commercial for a place selling spaghetti and meatballs. But anyway, it just makes it worse for him. And so Bud is seen sneaking out of the galley with something under his arm. He's obviously taken something. And he goes up onto the deck and he takes out Tommy Layton's gun. And he gives it to Lou and says, I can't stand to see you suffer. Here, you know what to do with this. And Lou says, I can't eat that. Are you kidding me? I scream. I just think it's hilarious.
Yes.
But Bud says, no, this is your solution, blah, 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 blah. So basically, he is paving the way for his partner and best friend to blow his brains out so he doesn't starve to death. Now, let's discuss this, Jerry, because this is really, this is the bone of contention for this movie and for Abbott and Costello in general. You imagine that Laurel would never do that to Hardy and Hardy would never do that to Laurel, you know?
Yes.
But then again, they had suicide scenes. They had a scene in Fra Diavolo, the Devil's Brother, where Stan is forced to hang Ollie, and he does it. And so, you know, hey, Laurel and Hardy fans, eat that.
As well as, I want to say Flying Deuces, where Ollie wants to kill himself, and obviously Stan has to as well.
Yeah, of course. It's part of the contract.
Yes. Yes. So, you know, he ties the stone around his waist and jump into the river kind of thing, you know.
There are dark things in Laurel and Hardy. There are. I mean, even the freakish endings, the physical endings where their heads are turned all the way around or their legs are tied around
alive.
Yeah, yeah. So let's keep this in context. You know, Laurel and Hardy were just as dark in their own way. But this one is, Bud's a little too serious about it. I mean, he really, when you hear the gunshot, you cut to Bud in the kitchen, sitting there with Tommy and Joan, and he just says, poor Wellington. It's cold. It's dark. It's scary.
Yes and no.
Yeah.
Again, it could be taken that way, or it could be, this is one friend being so concerned for another, he doesn't want to have to suffer the long, drawn-out death of starvation.
Exactly. Which is the worst, which is the absolute worst. Yeah. And you know what? I looked at it that way. As I was watching it yesterday, I thought to myself, okay, he's doing something altruistic. He's doing something he feels is charitable towards his friend. Mm-hmm. So his friend doesn't have to suffer. There's no hope. They're in the middle of the ocean. You know, they have no food, no water. So yeah, he did that. But the fact that he thought to do it, okay, let's just go a little deeper. The fact that he was sitting there thinking, of all people, why didn't he shoot himself? You know, if he's so Bud Abbott and so self-serving, you know what I mean? It would have been better if maybe it was, they had one bullet. You know what I mean? That would have like explained why he would do it. But anyway, maybe I'm being too kind to him. I don't know.
Well, and also they have already established that there is no more food.
Right.
They've eaten the last of the food. They've drank the last of the water. So it's not like eliminating one person is going to help the other three.
Exactly. And in fact, if I can get even darker, maybe he did it because Lou is the fattest and they wanted to eat him. No?
Okay.
You mean this movie wasn't directed by Richard Donner?
No, he was at a party. No, so,
chewing the fat with somebody, no doubt.
Yes.
So, but then Lou does a tribute to his hero, Charlie Chaplin. And what I mean by that is Lou actually misses his own head. Mm-hmm. So he did not kill himself. And Bud is actually disappointed.
Yes.
Bud is actually like, you're kidding. I can't believe this. But all of a sudden, Lou spots land and he points to it with the gun. And everybody comes up out of the galley and he turns around to tell them and he points the gun at them. And they all go back down into the galley. And then he turns back to the land and they all come out of the galley. Then he turns back to them and they all go back into the galley. It's from the Gold Rush. It's when Max Swain and Tom Murray are fighting over the rifle, and everywhere they point is where Charlie Chaplin is. And it's a hilarious scene, by the way. But anyway, so they have land. They're saved. And they pull up to this uncharted island. and there might be cannibals, so they're a little nervous. So Bud and Lou go to explore one part of the island, and Joan and Tommy go to explore the other one. Tommy does another very male thing. She's very independent, and he says, you got to be careful. There's wild animals. There might be animals. There might be cannibals. And she's like, please, I'm a grown woman, okay? And she walks ahead of him. So he starts making these sounds, and she gets scared and runs into his manly little arms and says, "You're stronger than I am, so protect me." Not in those words, but anyway. So they are slowly becoming more and more attached to each other. But then we cut to our real couple here, and that's Bud and Lou. And Bud has a plan. Because there might be cannibals, they find a shield, a native shield, and a club, very, very conveniently placed there for them to find. And Lou takes the club and the shield and starts playing it like a bass fiddle, and it's very funny.
Yes.
This is his Chaplin in him. Chaplin was famous for taking objects, everyday objects, and turning them into something else, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Lou does that all the time. So you could see the influence, even though they don't look alike. But anyway, so this is Bud's plan. Bud has a whistle, conveniently, and he says, when the cannibal starts chasing you, you hold him off with the shield. I'll blow the whistle. The cannibal will turn to see where the whistle's coming from, and you'll bop him on the head with the club. And they do it a few times, and it works. And then Bud can't find the whistle at one point. and Waba, our main native foil, Leif Erikson, who is just wonderful in this role.
Oh, yes.
He is fantastic. About to go to World War II, in fact, and do very well for us there. Quite a hero. But anyway, he's chasing Lou around, and Bud can't find the whistle, and Lou's screaming, "This guy's going to kill me, blow the whistle." It's a very funny scene, and it winds up with them being taken to the native chief. But let's talk about Lionel Atwill first. Now, you horror movie fans, you monster kids, you love Boris Karloff, you love Bela Lugosi, you love Lon Chaney, Senior and Junior, blah, blah, blah. But then you get to the point where it's George Zucco and it's Lionel Atwill. Now, I'm not going to say that he was any less than those people, but when you're listing your favorite Golden Age horror stars, he might rest around number 4, maybe number 5. But when you think about it, Bud and Lou worked with everyone but George Zucco. And in this movie, they work with Lionel Atwill. And Lionel was a bad boy. Lionel's nickname was Pinky. Everybody called him Pinky. And he is very villainous in this movie. He's one of the great villains of all time. He was just about to go play Professor Moriarty in one of the Sherlock Holmes, Basil Rathbone films. And he's wonderful in that. So Lionel Atwill was a, how can I put this? Swinger. He was a swinger.
Oh.
Pinky was. He used to show pornographic films at his home on a regular basis, invite people, and it would usually lead to an orgy. He was very into that. In fact, it got him into a lot of trouble. He got into a lot of legal trouble in, I believe it was 1940, might have been 41. But anyway, he was reported for having these unseemly parties, and there may have been some underage people involved, and his reputation was ruined, and thankfully places like Universal gave him supporting roles, which kept him working and solvent. He was also newly married at this point, and she was expecting his only child. So it was important for him to be working at this point, and unfortunately his private life was made public, and it was just one of those embarrassing, humiliating things for him. So before they go to the native chief, Lionel Atwill meets Joan and Tommy, who have found his hut, and he says, "I'm going to take you over to the head of the place, and he'll welcome you," and blah, blah, blah. So actually, they all meet together at the native village where they meet the head native. And he's just so remarkably right on for a native island chief. And his name is Samuel S. Hines.
Yes.
One of the straightest white men you will ever meet on this planet, and he has been in almost every movie of theirs, from
Yep.
Buck Private's on. And he plays, yes, I am the native chief, and the hen and the like that. And it's very funny. And
Yep.
Lionel Atwill translates for them. The chief says he likes your little fat friend, thinks he's cute. So he's inviting you all to have native wine with him and blah, blah, blah. So it's very friendly for now. And Lou becomes a favorite of the chief because he's cute. And at one point, they're standing by a huge bell. It's a big bell with a huge clapper right in the middle of it. You could stand inside this. You can, in fact, probably put 10 people inside this bell. But Bud and Lou are there, and they're arguing over the fact that Lou doesn't believe it's a bell at all because it's just so big. So Bud pushes him, and his head hits the clapper hits the bell, and of course it rings. And the legend is whoever rings the bell is the village hero and has to go up into the Temple of Doom and try to get rid of the evil spirit. Now, 5 times this has happened, and no one has ever come back. We learn later that Lionel Atwill is running a scam. He's stealing the jewels that are given to the people going up into the temple to protect them. And they're all very, very valuable jewels. So basically, Lionel Atwill and his gang kill the people and take the jewels. So anyway, Lou is the hero, and now he has to go up. But he has a rival for maybe the cutest native girl I've ever seen. Sorry, Dorothy Lamour. But Nan Wynn is just gorgeous. I always felt that when I was a kid. That is one beautiful woman with a beautiful voice, and that is her voice. She sang with Teddy Wilson's band, in fact, big band. And later on in life, unfortunately, she had a cancerous node on her vocal cords. And after the operation, she was fine, but it just didn't, the momentum was gone. Yeah. But boy, she's just terrific. So Lou has a rival. He's supposed to marry her. She's the chief's daughter, and that's all part of this moolah thing. Moolah is hero in their language. All right. Leif Erikson, the great Leif Erikson, plays Waba, who is the native who is against Lou marrying his girl, who is Nan Wynn. So they do the stinker routine. Now, we love the stinker routine. This is an old burlesque routine, probably minstrel days, where the native, Leif Erikson, is telling Lou not to marry. Luana is her name. Lovely Luana.
Listen, you, I was talking to the young lady. You're big enough to help yourself.
Luana no marry Mula. Marry me.
Why should I marry you? You don't even appeal to me.
Da.
But anyway, so Lou calls him a stinker. And he goes, what is stinker? And Bud thinks fast and jumps in and says, oh, no, stinker's a great man. It's a great, great man. And he goes, yes, I am a stinker. And they're all like, thank you. You're the biggest stinker I've ever seen. Thank you. Your whole family was stinkers. Oh, yes, my father was a stinker. My brother was a stinker. Anyway, that's the whole bit. And boy, Jerry, I don't know about you, but as kids, we just ate that up with a spoon.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Funny stuff. Definitely funny.
I don't know how many of my schoolmates in the day became stinkers overnight, in my opinion. You know,
it's a great bit.
Yeah.
But then they sit down to the luau, the feast, to celebrate on the eve of the great mullah going to the temple. And he's, of course, seated next to Leif Erikson, Waba. And they do the old standby. And I'm not sure if every classic Golden Age comedian hasn't done the Bill Cosby bit. Meaning somebody puts some sort of drug into a drink and the other person, it's the old roofie thing. And Lou, or whoever the comedian is, takes note of it without the other person knowing, and they do the old switcheroo. You know, oh, look at that painting over there. And when the person looks, they switch the cups around. And of course, it ends with Lou only making the sound of the cups being switched, the Leif Erikson actually switching them, and he ends up getting the drink, the Cosby special. All right, so they go into one of the big numbers, and this is Bingo Jingo. which starts out as a very serious, almost a prayer to their great god, Vingo, who's probably my favorite Marx brother. And they go into this, oh, great one, God of the mountain, all of this stuff. But it leads into Nan Wynn doing a jazzy boogie woogie. Yep. Let's hear a little bit of that. Just a little bit.
There's a beat everybody really ought to know. It's a treat, stop your feet to bingo, jingle, bingo, jingle, bingo, jingle, bingo. Everyone ought to learn the way the rhythms go. It's a treat.
Okay. So we have the Vingo Jingo number, and I have to say that this was a very progressive film in the sense that this was choreographed. All of the dances in this movie were choreographed by a woman by the name of Katherine Dunham. Katherine Dunham, if you look her up, is a historical figure in African-American history. She had an incredible career before this, created her own dance company, which in New York ran for years and years, and I doubt Universal would have hired her. Jules Levy hired her, and it was a very brave thing to do at the time. So I just wanted to point that out. Pardon My Sarong is progressive. So they do that number, and that leads into Tommy and Joan going on Tommy's hunch that Lionel Atwill might not be the most honest person in the world. So they go back to his hut when he's not there, and they find his two-way radio set. And this goes to his henchmen, who are Jack LaRue, one of my all-time favorite gangster types, and Joe Kirk. Now, Joe Kirk, whose original name was Ignazio Curacuto. Parents were immigrants from Sicily, and he was a comedian and a MC in vaudeville during the 30s. And then he eventually married Lou's sister, Marie. And he ended up being in every Abbott and Costello movie up until he divorced Marie. And I think we discussed this last podcast. But anyway, he's in this movie. And he's not Mr. Botchakaloop. He's a henchman. And he does some funny stuff with Lou during the chase. I say. When he hits him with the thing, when he's pretending to be a statue and he hits him like 20 times. It's very funny. But anyway, so we have those guys and they're gangsters, and now we know about it. Apparently, Robert Page was really hit with a vase that was supposed to be a breakaway, and he was gone for like 2 days.
Wow.
Yeah. So that fight scene was actually pretty accurate, but she accidentally knocks him out and Lionel Atwill takes over. Okay, so let's go to where Lou is about to approach the steps that leads him up to the Temple of Doom. And the steps, the temple, and the interior are all from two movies made previously by Universal, one of which Vincent Price claimed to the day he died was the worst movie ever made. And it was called Green Hell, directed by James Whale, the great James Whale.
Wow.
And it had Vincent in it and Douglas Fairbanks Jr. He said it was the worst movie ever. But then they used it to even greater effect in The Mummy's Hand. If you're a monster kid, you will recognize that altar and the set and the thing behind them, the Egyptian thing behind them. So this was the background for the big Temple of Doom sequence. But before we get there, I have another Lou Costello moment that I just find irresistible. He is about to go to his doom. Now he knows nobody came back and he's got to go, and that's it. And Bud runs up to him and says, "I hate to see this happen to you." And Lou's like, "Oh, my pal." And Bud says, "By the way, here's the $1 I owe you." And he hands him $1, which he takes out of his sarong. And Lou looks at him and says, "You're giving me the $1 now? I'm about to go up to my doom." And while he's saying this, he thinks to turn to the natives who don't speak English, and he starts explaining it to them. "He gives me the $1 now. I'm about to go up to the thing." That's what makes Lou Costello for me. It's filling in cracks with these wonderful things. So, so after getting bit on the nose by the fish hat he's wearing, again, the person listening to this, what the hell is this movie? He goes up into the Temple of Doom, and this begins one of the great chases of the 1940s. It made me think, Frank Tashlin got a lot of credit for the chases he would put at the end of his films.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure he saw this film. Let's put it that way. I'm sure he saw this film. Also, uncredited was their future director, Charles Lamont, who was a silent movie comedy director. He was also in on the chase scenes without credit. But you got to admit, this chase is just, it's out of control. It's just fantastic. Yeah. It starts in the actual temple itself, and it's Bugs Bunny. It's, it's like him running up the stairs and running out of breath and saying to the crooks, wait, stop a second. I always get this way when I run upstairs. I think I'm too fat. Okay, let's go. And then they start the chase again. And then Bud comes up to make sure, and I like that Bud comes up to make sure he's okay. He didn't have to. He knew it might have been his death, Maybe he's making up for the gun thing. Who knows?
Hey, there you go.
Know what I'm saying? It kind of evens out there. So Bud gets involved. They do this thing where they pretend to be statues, which is funny. But then Lou ends up running out of the actual building, out of a top window, and this animated figure goes like, this is something I remember from childhood so well because I didn't know what to make of it. It's like almost like this cartoon Lou is like spinning out of the window and landing in a tree. And then you cut and you see the real Lou in the tree. It's great movie magic. So they expand the chase out into the jungle, which, by the way, cost a fortune in plants and trees. I just want to say, big part of the budget. And this just reminds me that we discussed Ed Sullivan, the Ed Sullivan routine they did with the tax man. And before I forget, Kevin Brownlow sent me a clip. Now, this is probably the rarest thing you will ever hear pertaining to Bud Abbott or Abbott and Costello anywhere. But Bud Abbott actually put a tape recorder on record at his first meeting with the IRS. And I have it here. Shall I play it, Jerry?
Anything I say is not going to matter. So sure, why not?
You're absolutely right. Okay, so here it is. I'm going to press play. Pardon the sound quality because this is a long time ago. Here we go.
Mr. Abbott, it says here that you took a deduction of $7 million for hats? Yes, of course, fedoras. You spent $7 million on fedoras? I'm a straight man. I have to look good. What is with you? Don't you understand what I'm doing? I'm sorry, Mr. Abbott, but I have to do this. I'm a government. Quiet with the government thing. What are you, nuts or something? That's horrible. Listen to me. No, Mr. Abbott. I'm looking down here. It says for mustache wax, you deducted $8 million. What is it? Quiet with that. You need mustache wax. I'm a straight man. I have to look good. Don't you realize? Yes, but don't you? Quiet. What is with?
It ends there. I'm not sure if any more of it exists, but we'll know.
I pray it doesn't.
Poor Bud. They just hounded him, and it was just, yes.
I have to say, I have told a number of my friends about this podcast. They're Abbott and Costello fans, and they've started listening. And to a one, they all comment about the Bud Abbott segments that you unearth and how much they enjoy them. And it makes me question if I want to still be friends with these people.
I got news for you, pal. I hear it too all the time. I don't know. It's like I told you. I think I told you this a while ago. I actually wrote that bit when I was in junior high school.
Yeah.
And I thought no, pardon me, but I thought it was so funny that it stayed with me all these years. And I used to do it for people, people who knew Abbott and Costello. So how lovely that I could bring these clips to this podcast and, and educate the audience. So where are we now? Oh, yeah. So the chase is going on. And
yes, we're chasing.
I'm sorry, Jerry, you were about to say something.
No, I was just going to say we're chasing. We're going through the woods. I did want to point out, since you're so good at name dropping here. Something I never noticed before.
Mhm.
You've got the henchmen that are chasing Bud and Lou, but meanwhile, back with Lionel Atwell and Tommy and Joan,
Mhm.
one of the thugs that is with him there is Harry Wilson,
Mhm.
the man of the extremely recognizable face.
Maybe the ugliest man in Hollywood.
Yes, I
Mhm.
had never noticed him there before. He
Yep.
might
Yep.
have one line, maybe.
No lines.
Okay.
No lines.
Yeah.
Because I noticed him too for the first time in this movie. Because he's not one of the prominent henchmen. He's
No.
sitting next. He's actually driving the boat when
Yes.
when Lionel Atwell kidnaps Joan. We're getting ahead of ourselves, but he's from England. He's British,
Mm-hmm.
and he came over here. I write about him in our book, and so does Matthew in one of his chapters. But anyway, he's the one in Some Like It Hot who goes buttermilk. You know, that guy.
We was with him at Rigoletto's.
That's it. That's Rigolettas.
Yeah.
He worked for years. He worked for years and years and years.
Yes.
First in England and then here.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah, that was a
great
surprise. I
bunch
had
of
no
pros.
idea that he was in this movie.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, well, let's see. One more thing to look out for, folks.
Yeah.
Harry Wilson. So, okay, so the chase is going on, and Lionel Atwell has our heroine, Virginia Bruce. He has, what's his name? Tommy's tied up in the cabin with the bump on his head from the vase. And he puts Joan in the boat, and he's got Harry Wilson driving, and he goes away. I don't know where he's going. Where is he going, Jerry?
He's going bye-bye.
Where's Bye-Bye? Over there somewhere.
He's over there.
Over there somewhere. So where's it going? They're on an uncharted island. What's he going to do? Go out and then come back? I really don't know. So anyway, Lou decides he's going to save the day. He jumps in the water to swim after the speeding boat.
Yes.
And Sharky, of all people, jumps into the water, and Lou holds on to Sharky, and Sharky actually takes him right up to the boat. Now, this starts a great fight in the boat between Lionel Atwell and Lou, including the great shoe gag where the guy, he's twisting his ankle, but it's actually just his shoe. And Lou tells him, Lou actually whistles. He doesn't say, "Hey, look over there."
Yeah.
He goes, and points. And then he throws the shoe at him. I love that. But anyway, they're fighting, and Lou is knocked off the boat. And in doing so, he takes this board off the boat, and he's hanging on while he's water skiing on this flat piece of wood. And behind him, steadily approaching, is a swordfish, which proceeds to saw the board in half, causing his legs to go crazy, and try to hang on. And I'm sure there was some wiki-wachi acrobatic performer doing all the stunts. And by the way, the during the chase, you see Pat Costello all over it. He's just, he's everywhere. But anyway, so Lou is water skiing. The swordfish pokes him in the butt and sends him back into the boat. And he gets knocked out again, only this time he's holding on to the actual motor. The motor comes off the boat, so it's sitting there in the middle of the ocean. And Lou is now motorized and starts heading towards the boat itself, and he's going to ram it. And Lionel Atwell and Harry Wilson look at each other and say, "Oh," and they jump off the boat. And instead, he just kind of gets behind the boat and gently guides Virginia Bruce back to safety. We just assume that Lionel Atwell and Harry Wilson are food for sharks, I imagine.
I think they met up with William Demarest, actually.
Where were you guys?
We was in Rigoletto's. Oh God! So anyway, there is an interesting story about the ending to this film. There were two endings. The ending that is there now is that they are now leaving. The sail has been fixed, and they are waiting in the yacht for Lou to join them. But he is the hero. He is the one that lived, and he's kissing Luana, lovely Luana, who, by the way, sings a song in tribute to herself during this film. It's called Lovely Luana. Lovely Luana, la da 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 da. She sings a song to herself about how beautiful she is. But she is beautiful, so I let her get away with it. But anyway, she's kissing Lou, and Bud says, "Come on, we've got to go." And Lou is so, how can you put this? He's so built up with steam over this kiss that he jumps into the lagoon and smoke rises from the lagoon from his heat. And the words "the end" comes up as well. And that is the end of the film. But they filmed a much better ending. And I have no idea why they didn't use it. But the whole thing of Luana kissing him and him jumping into the lagoon was just a gag they shot for the film itself. They grabbed it and used it for the ending here. The real ending is that Bud and Lou and everybody, they're on the boat, they're getting ready to go. And something happens where the dinghy that's on the boat slips and Luana rolls out. And Lou is actually taking Luana with him. And he's ready to give her a kiss. And he closes his eyes, and Sharky comes up instead and kisses him on the lips. Lou opens his eyes, screams, and falls into the galley for the end, for a big ending. I just think that's so much better. It's I can't imagine someone sitting there in the head office saying, you know what, this is too funny. I think we should take it out and put this other thing in that they shot. You know what I'm saying? It's who came up with this? No. So anyway, that is the story of a movie, an Abbott and Costello movie that is on both of our top 5. Right, Jared?
Yeah, it most definitely is.
And I can tell you why. It is just so jam-packed with such great Abbott and Costello material. And I'm not going to say that there is a lot that they repeated later on. You know what I mean? And from this film. There were a few things here and there. But for the most part, when you watch this film, it's really refreshing. It's really fun. And again, you have the ink spots and Tip, Tap, and Toe, and they are just delightful. So I guess I'll leave it at that. Yeah.
And, I've always been a collector, back in the day, as we both were, the Super 8, Universal
Castle
8,
Films.
or Castle Films, whatever name they went by.
Yeah.
And the one I vividly remember most, I think, was called Take Bus, Pay Later, which was the whole bus segments from this movie. Pretty much the entire opening half hour of the film, anything that dealt with the bus, plus going into the chase with Marco the Magician and all that.
Wow.
And as I'm watching the film this last time, I can hear my projector in the background running as I'm remembering watching these silent at the time, but I recorded the soundtrack of the film, watching it on TV, and did my best with my cassette player. Yes.
Let me ask you this, just 1 second. I know what you're getting at. You're trying to sync up the sound, which I try constantly. Did you have those Laurel and Hardy ones that came with the records?
No.
I think it was 20th Century Fox or some arm of 20th Century Fox. They released the same size films that the Castle films were, but they were the Laurel and Hardy Fox films. And they came with a record, a 33 1/3 record. And it had a tone that you would start the projector at a certain point at the tone, and they never worked. It never worked. And I'm sure some people will bear me out here. You get close, or even if you have it down, it'll go astray after like 5 minutes. It just wasn't a good idea. I liked when they came out with Super 8 sound. That's when
I was going to say that's probably why back in the late 1920s they decided sound on film was the way to go.
Yeah,
as opposed to the records.
Absolutely. No, it's true. It's true.
Yeah.
And it seemed like, it was like 1909, trying to match up the sound. It's like an Edison experiment. But so anyway, Jared, what's the next one we're looking at? I think we're looking at
the next one, episode 10 of our podcast will be the next episode. So that's kind of a milestone in and of itself.
I would say.
We will be looking at the movie Who Done It. I have to say that it probably takes the number 1 spot on my list.
It's number 2.
In spite of Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, which I love.
Yeah.
I really love it. But it's hard to say.
It's hard. To me, it's just maybe a hair under.
Yeah.
Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. But still, Jerry, I just want to say, as usual, it's been a total pleasure. And I hope that these next couple of weeks, you have a very good time.
Well, thank you, sir, and I wish you all the same as well. And I anxiously look forward to these wonderful little excursions we have here,
Me
in
too.
spite of the Bud Abbott highlights that we get. But still,
Someday he's going to slap you. You keep saying that. He's going to come to your house and he's going to slap you. You know, if you look in your mirror and say Bud Abbott 3 times and then spin around, and he will slap you and then hand you a gun to kill yourself. So, on that note, I'm going to bid you a cheery farewell. And everybody, thank you for listening. Again, go to my website, www.nicksantamaria.com, for all things Nick Santa Maria, including our book and even other stuff. Lots of video, lots of fun. And that's about it. Jerry, take good care of yourself.
And you as well, my friend. Till next time.
Till next time, everybody. Bye-bye.